That's Red Rock Casino. We came here once before. We played some 1-2. I thought I'd switch it up, come out to Summerlin, maybe play a little 2-5, check out the 2-5 game. But you know, sometimes I just feel like you have to really just take in your surroundings, really just appreciate. Red Rock Casino, the 2-5 can be a little bit better or a lot better than the 1-2. Always depends on the lineup, but just gotta see how it is. But yeah, the 2-5 game can be pretty decent. Thought we'd come out here, get off the strip, switch it up a little bit. Let's get in there and check it out. Alright, just had the 2-5 game way over there on the other side of the room. Max buy-in is 1,000 here, so we're in for 1,000. If you happen to have pocket aces and you flop quad aces here, that's like $12,000 or $10,000 or something like that. So, I don't know, does that mean you should limp all your pocket aces just to hope to flop the magical quads? Nah, usually just play straightforward. Whatever happens with those promotions happens. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so quick update. I missed recording a couple of interesting hands because I was chatting to a very nice person named Ashley. Ashley just had her 5th child 3 weeks ago. So congratulations to Ashley. Nice meeting you. But just wanted to go over a couple of hands real quick. The 2 biggest hands of note so far. So there's a couple limps and I complete from the small blind with pocket 3s. And the big blind raises to $35. There's 2 callers in front of me, and I elect to call as well. Flop is pretty favorable. Flop is 10-9-3, 10 of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, offsuit 3. I check, and the big blind continuation bets for 110, and it folds back to me. Pretty good situation. I don't expect the big blind to be too weak here, c-betting into 3 opponents. Should be able to get decent action on this board with a raise, especially considering that I could have a lot of draws in my range as well. So I elect to check raise, and I raise it to $350. After the $350, I would have about 400 something, a little over 400 left behind. So that would make for a pretty easy get in on the turn if the big blind elects to call. So the big blind thinks for quite a while and then calls. Turn is a great card. Turn is an offsuit 5. So as planned, I stick the rest of the money in there. It's somewhere between $400 and $450. Big blind thinks for a while. Unfortunately, the big blind makes the fold, but we'll take down a pretty decent sized pot there. A little bit later on, it folds to me in the hijack. I look down at Jack 8 of clubs. Certainly not a hand that you have to play, but you know what they say, folding is boring. So I raise it up to 20. The cutoff, the button, and the big blind call. So we go to a flop 4 ways. Flop is ace 7-3 with 2 clubs. There's 2 checks. So with decent equity and no showdown value, I put in a c-bet. Don't necessarily need to put in a big c-bet, I don't think. So I bet a little over half pot. I bet $45. The cutoff folds and the button calls, as does the big blind. Turn is an offsuit 9, so we add a straight draw to our flush draw. Big blind checks, and it's a little bit of a decision here. Can elect to keep firing or check and hope it checks through. Going for a check doesn't seem great to me in this spot, because if we check and then the button bets, we have to check call, and our hand is pretty face up at this point, I would think. I think continuing the story with a bet is probably the best option. So I bet 100. The button thinks for a little bit and folds, and the big blind thinks for a little bit and then calls. River is a total brick, offsuit deuce, big blind checks. We have absolutely no showdown value here, and we've told a pretty good story up to this point. It might be slightly higher variance to fire a 3-barrel bluff in 1-2, 1-3, 2-5 games, but I think it's the best line. I think it's the GTO line, if you will. I don't expect the big blind to be super strong here. I think with a draw-heavy board, especially on the turn, most 2-5 players, they tend to announce their hands a little bit with a check raise. They don't want those draws coming in. They like to raise it up for protection. So I expect him to be weighted fairly light, I would say. I expect him to have top pair here pretty often, and oftentimes trying to get people off of the top pair holding is a little bit difficult. But all that being said, I still think it's better than trying to check down jack high. So I fire the 3rd barrel. I bet $230. Big blind thinks for a little bit. Unfortunately, no love. He makes the call. We show it down, and he shows ace-5 offsuit. Don't necessarily think it was the wrong play. Could have chosen to not play the hand in the first place. Maybe that was the right play, but nobody likes a nit, you know? So I'm stuck a little over 100 or so. Table is so-so, medium action, I would say. Kind of an average 2-5 table here at the Red Rock. Just ordered a breakfast burrito. Looking forward to that arrival. Side of hot sauce, obviously. Just keeping after it. Gonna get back to it.
You guys already have an excuse to take like a break.
So in this hand, the button straddle is on. I look down at 6-7 of clubs from under the gun. Semi-marginal spot. I think in a straightforward 2-5 game where you're not getting put in too many tough situations from too many tough players, I think it's okay to open it up here. If there's a lot of 3-betting going on, a lot of 3-bet bluffs going on, if some 3-bet ranges are fairly on the wide side, then probably not going to be the best open from under the gun with the 7-6 suited. But like I said, in a fairly straightforward game, in certain games, I think it's okay. So, this being one of those games, I open it up for 30. A player in middle position calls, the button calls, and the big blind calls. So we go 4 ways to the flop. Pretty favorable flop. Favorable flop once again. 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs, 3 of clubs. We flop a flush. The big blind checks. Definitely want to start building a pot here, so I bet $75. Lots of hands that can continue, pairs, straight draws, higher flush draws. Probably could have even bet a little bigger here. Middle position player folds, and the button raises it up. He makes it 200 to go. The big blind folds, and it's back on us. Definitely liking this situation. We obviously don't beat too many flushes here, but if it's a flush over flush hand, it's just gonna have to go down as a cooler. The only real question is, do we want to get it all in here on the flop? Or do we want to go a different route? Do we want to flat call, look for a safe card on the turn, safe card being a non-club or non-board pairing card, The button has about 600 behind at this point. So there's nothing really too fancy that can be done with these stack sizes. It's either a jam or call and look for a safe card. I think once he puts in that raise and has 600 behind, once he puts 200 in on the flop, it seems like he likes his hand. It seems like he's probably not going to be going anywhere. Most people don't raise it up to $200 and are looking to fold. Could maybe be seeing where he's at, one of those kinds of situations, one of those kinds of plays. So it's a question of, will he call off with worser? Well, he's definitely gonna have to call off with 10-9. He's definitely gonna have to call it off with a set. It's questionable whether he's gonna call it off with an ace-10 type hand. Obviously he will if he has the ace of clubs. With a king-10 type hand, with a king of clubs, not too sure in that exact situation. And again, if he happens to have a higher flush, it's just gonna have to be a cooler. In a straddled pot, effective stack sizes are halved. So in a flush over flush situation, he's just gonna have to get the max. So all that being said, I elect to jam it all in there. We fade the snap call, which is always a good thing. He doesn't snap call. He goes into the tank. Thinks for a while, thinks for a while. I get the poker face on. He looks at me for a little while, and then he makes the call. Turn is an offsuit ace. River's an offsuit queen. We showdown, and he mucks. We end up scooping a pretty sizable pot here. So this is the very next hand after that previous 7-6 of clubs hand. This is the very next hand dealt. There's a middle position limp, the small blind calls, and we look down at pocket queens in the big blind. Obviously a hand we want to raise it up with, so I make it 30 to go. The middle position player calls and the small blind folds. Flop comes pretty safe. Flop is 9-9-4 with 2 diamonds. I make a standard C bet. I bet 40, and the middle position player calls. Turn is a jack, offsuit jack. I don't think there's any reason to slow down here, so I bet again. This time I bet 95. He calls again, not too much hesitation. River is the ace of diamonds. Not a great card. I don't really expect him to have too many aces here in his range after he called twice on this type of board. I look back at my queens and I don't have the queen of diamonds. I think it makes a pretty big difference whether I have the queen of diamonds or not, because there's lots of straight draws. If he did have a flush draw, there's lots of straight draws that he could have picked up that the queen of diamonds could connect with and could make sense in his hand range. So I decided to check, and he assembles a bet. He bets, I think, about $190, just under $200. It's not really a giant bet compared to the pot size. Seems like a fairly standard size bet. And I'm not too sure what hands we beat here. There can't be any pure bluffs in his range. He could be turning a random 4 into a bluff. That's pretty much the only hand that we beat. A 4 or some other small to medium pocket pair that he's now turning into a bluff. I actually think it would be an interesting play to jam over the top of this bet here. I don't know if we're really deep enough, and I don't know if this is the correct player to do that against. This happens to be the same player that I triple barreled versus and got called down by ace-5. So same player, not really somebody I'm looking to bluff too frequently. Kind of learned my lesson there. And I don't know if we're deep enough anyway for that. So I don't know. I'm not really too sure what the best play is here. We're getting a fairly decent price, but I feel like we only beat those random hands that he turns into a bluff. And as much as you know that I like to call down, especially on rivers, and you know how much I like to see showdowns, you know I'm a curious player, just decided to let this one go. He could have a 9, he could have a flush, he could have pocket 4s. I don't think he ever has an ace rarely has an ace, but seeing as we only beat these weird hands that he somehow perfectly turns into a bluff, just decided to let it go. It probably only cost me an hour or two of sleep tonight not knowing what he had. Just wrapping up the session, pretty good day. Booked to win a 722. So no complaints in that regard. As you can see, and as mentioned, there tends to be a little bit more action in the 2-5 game here at the Red Rock than there is in the 1-2. Always depends on that lineup, but not a bad game over here. If you do find the need to ever degen it up a little bit, this is what I recommend right here. I don't know if I would even call this degenning it up. See that? Over 100% payback. You know what that means? That means it's plus EV. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. As soon as we make a straight flush or better, if we make 5 of a kind, royal with a deuce, 4 deuces, or royal flush no deuces, we're gonna quit. But it's time for a little VP fix. Let's get in there. All right, that didn't take too long. We made 5 of a kind. We're up $11 now. I'm just gonna quit. If I go down this rabbit hole, if you have an addictive personality, stay away from that video poker. It's like the crack cocaine of the casino. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Andrew, what are you, a sucker? There's no plus EV casino games. And I don't know if I should be telling you this, but if you study the video poker strategies, which can be found online, and you play that 100% payback game, it is actually plus EV. If you're playing perfectly, if you know what to hold in every situation, it's a plus EV game. Now, whether or not it's actually worth your time grinding it out at the video poker machine, if you want my opinion is no, it's not worth it. I can't tell you how many hours I put in those dumb games. Not worth it when you have actual live poker to be played. But if you need something other than live poker, something to wind down with a little bit, it beats roulette, that's for sure. Of course, you always could just go home and read a book or something, hit the gym, something like that, something productive. But we're all gamblers, so let's be real. Gamblers gonna gamble.